Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1220, and today's date is March 5th, 2017, and the title of the news brief is, "The Tables Were Just Turned on Obama and the Deep State with this Simple Maneuver." Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, as we know, the economy continually deteriorates. We've been looking at many of the economic indicators, and even though Trump is out there and he has this positive message that jobs are coming back, manufacturing is coming back, well, this economy that's been deteriorating for a very long time, which has never recovered since 2008, can't be turned around on a dime. It's completely impossible, especially with this debt bubble that is looming over not just the U.S., but the globe. The central bankers, they have pushed their agenda so far that they've destroyed the economies of almost every country. And we can see that the people right now are looking at the situation saying we don't have jobs, the situation doesn't look better, and it's getting worse and worse. And we look at Greece for an example. Since 2008, nothing has improved over 9 years. The situation just got worse, and they just continually take on more debt. Here in the U.S., we see that GM is going to be laying off 1,300 workers at the Detroit assembly plant. Now, we could see at this point that they're not hiring people, they're letting people go. And we're not just seeing this with manufacturing, we're seeing this with retail. We're seeing this with the financial institutions. Things are breaking down dramatically and very quickly. Now, a lot of people look at the stock market and they say, well, how long can this surge continue on? Can this just go on forever? And we need to remember something very important about the stock market. First of all, it's manipulated. It's manipulated by the central banks. It's manipulated by the banks receiving the free money, pumping money into the stock market. It's manipulated by the high-frequency traders and the plunge protection team. And we see right now that when we go back into the past and we look at like PE ratios, we notice something very interesting. That a stock trades at a price that gives it a PE ratio of 20. Now, stock price is 20 times earning per share. When earnings per share remain flat over time, but the stock price rises, then the PE ratio expands. When this spreads across the market, even when aggregate earnings remain flat, it means rally. The things that changed during those 5 years was the PE ratio. So over the last 5 years, what has changed? The PE ratio. This combination of flat earnings and soaring stocks, and thus soaring PE ratios, is historically speaking not a good thing when it drags on for too long. Now, when we look at the S&P 500 PE ratios on January 1st of the year, the aggregate PE ratio has nearly doubled from 14.9 on January 1st, 2012 to 26.7 on March 3rd of 2017. Well, flat earnings, that's not really a problem. But when we look at this, the problem for stocks is the inevitable multiple compression. Multiple expansion and compression go in cycles, like boom and bust. Multiple compression with flat earnings means sell-off. And when this combines with an earnings decline, the sell-off turns into something that is much, much worse. And it happens with regularity. Now, when we look at a chart of a 12-month change in S&P 500, we see something very interesting going back to 1979. We see 4 periods of multiple expansion. And the first 3, which ended in 1987, 2000, and 2009, turned into periods of multiple compression associated with a blistering, devastating crash in each one of these periods. And here we are in 2017. Now, if we go back to the period of 1987, up until 1987, we had a period of time of about 32 months where everything was going fine until we hit 1987 and everything came to a screeching halt. In 2000, we had 47 months prior to 2000 before everything came to a screeching halt. In 2009, we had 31 months And that was a huge crash. Here in 2017, we're at 57 months right now. And the situation looks like we are heading into a major crash scenario. I mean, just think about everything that we've talked about in prior reports. The credit impulse down to negative. We've seen retail contract. We've seen housing prices are actually falling. Sales are drying up. Layoffs are continuing. We're seeing the Fed is prepared to bring in QE once again, and they're preparing $1 trillion. Bank of America is saying, listen, we just did the analysis the second half of 2017. You better start buying puts. And those are bets that the economy is going to be coming down. We know that Soros has bet $500 million that the second half of this year, the economy is going to be coming down. So when we look at the situation, we can see right now, things are rapidly deteriorating. Now, out on the corporate media, we know that the central bank, the deep state, they are pushing the idea that Jeff Sessions have met with Russian ambassadors and Trump is in league with Russia, and they're continually using this story, and so far there's been absolutely no proof whatsoever. But it doesn't matter because propaganda works in a way where all you have to do is mention it and just keep mentioning it over and over and over. Now, something very interesting about Jeff Sessions meeting with a Russian ambassador. Now, he met with many different ambassadors. He was on the arms committee, and that was part of his job. But what's very interesting is that Obama's Department of State sponsored the July event in Ohio where Senator Jeff Sessions met with the Russian ambassador for the second time in 2016. The two-day event was hosted by a civic organization, Global Cleveland, whose website cites the State Department's role. On Tuesday, July 19th, Global Cleveland welcomed roughly 80 international ambassadors to its global partners in diplomacy reception at Severance Hall. The event, coordinated in partnership with the 2016 Republican National Convention and the U.S. Department of State, introduced the ambassadors to nearly 200 of Northeast Ohio's civic and corporate leaders. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing that this was a planned event and Jeff Sessions met with ambassadors. We know that Pelosi met with a Russian ambassador. And we see from Paul Ryan, Senator Paul Ryan is saying this is normal. And it is normal. And if you notice, that's where this whole story stops. They have nothing else to put out there. Now, Trump did something very interesting over the weekend. And he actually changed the narrative of the entire story of what's going on right now. Actually, he used a wag the dog maneuver. He accused Obama of wiretapping his office. Now, think about just what has just happened here. He switched the narrative from Trump being associated with Russia, Jeff Sessions being associated with Russia, meeting with Russian ambassadors, and changed the entire dynamic. Now, is this story true? Is it false? Well, if it is false, he just set himself up for the biggest fall ever. Because if he cannot prove this, people are going to look at him as a liar. So, he must know something then. Because if he doesn't, he's going to be in big trouble. Now, of course, Obama is out there saying that this is completely false. The accusations that Trump is pushing out there, Obama says this is not true. He never ordered any type of wiretapping. Now, Ben Rhodes, a former senior advisor to Obama, in his role as Deputy National Security Advisor, slammed Trump's accusations, insisting that no president can order a wiretap. Those restrictions were put in place to protect citizens from people like you, he said. And when he means you, he means Trump. He said only a liar can make the case, as Trump suggested, that Obama wiretapped Trump Tower ahead of the elections. And it would appear, however, that Rhodes is completely wrong, especially as it pertains to matters of foreign intelligence surveillance and its associated FISA court, under which the alleged wiretap of Donald Trump would have been granted, as it pertains specifically to Trump's alleged illicit interactions with Russian entities. In Chapter 36 of Title 50 of the U.S. Code, War and National Defense, Subchapter 1, Section 1802, It reads as follows. Notwithstanding any other law, the President, through the Attorney General, may authorize electronic surveillance without a court order under this subchapter to acquire foreign intelligence information for periods of up to 1 year if the Attorney General certifies in writing under oath that this is what is needed. Now, a senior White House official said that Donald F. McGahn II, the President's chief counsel, was working to secure access to what the official described as a document issued by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court authorizing surveillance of Mr. Trump and his associates. And when this document is made public, if it exists, it would be Trump showing the world once again that he actually does have evidence. Now, I'm thinking to myself, once again, like I said previously, if he didn't have proof, he's going to come out as a liar, that this was fake and this is not going to work out for him. So he must already have the document. Now, what's very interesting is that a number of ex-Obama officials appear to suggest that the Obama administration may have actually wiretapped the Trump campaign, but that if they did, it would have been justified by a court and part of an investigation by the Justice Department, not led by or ordered from the White House or the former president himself. And on Saturday, former President Obama spokesman Kevin Lewis denied that the former White House or the former president himself would have given such an order to wiretap or any other type of surveillance in any case, but that such an order would have come from an independent investigation led by the Department of Justice. So that doesn't mean that he didn't have some type of role in this. So let's break this all down right now. Trump right now is calling for Democrats to be investigated for the undisclosed ties to Russia. Trump is seeking Obama's wiretapping order. Now, how did Obama obtain FISA warrant to wiretap Trump Tower? Well, first, Obama's team tried to get a warrant from a regular Article 3 federal court on Trump and was told by maybe the FBI that the evidence that he had was weak or non-existent. Second, Obama's team then tried to circumvent the federal judiciary independent role by trying to mislabel the issue as foreign agents and tried to obtain a warrant from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act courts and were again turned down. Third, Obama circumvented both the regular command of the FBI and the regularly appointed federal courts by placing the entire case as a FISA case, apparently under Sally Yates of the Department of Justice, as a foreign case, and then omitted Trump's name from the surveillance warrant submitted to the FISA court, which the FISA court unwittingly granted, which Obama then misused to spy on Trump and many connected to Trump. Now, as of so far, we're seeing that Obama actually did have a role in this. And of course, he tried to cover his tracks along the way. Now, the question is, can a president be charged with a crime? Well, only once the president is out of office. While in office, impeachment remains the exclusive remedy in order to avoid a single judiciary branch trying to overturn an election. Now, once out of office, a president remains immune from civil liability from his duties while president under a 1982 decision of the United States Supreme Court. However, as the Nixon pardon attests, nothing forecloses a criminal prosecution of the president after his presidency is complete for crimes against the country. And Obama, as a constitutional lawyer, well, he should know this. So what crimes could have been committed? What crimes has he done? Well, Democrats falsely accusing Attorney General Sessions perjury and conspiracy to commit perjury, as well as intentional violations of FISA. Now, when we look at the entire situation, we said in the beginning of all of this that Trump must have something already, because if he doesn't, the corporate media, the deep state, well, they're going to bury him. Now, Paul Ryan has confirmed that the Obama administration wiretapped Trump Towers. So when we look at this, it looks like they must have some type of proof. And we can see at this point, Trump has completed wag the dog to the 10th degree, where he basically turned the tables on Obama and the deep state, moved away from the Russian narrative to what Obama has done in regards to wiretapping, breaking the law, and we'll have to see how this whole thing just plays out. Now, out in North Korea, during the years of Obama's presidency, we've come to find out that the United States government central bankers were cyber attacking North Korea. Remember when all those missiles were being fired by North Korea? They were testing their missiles and they would blow up or they would deviate from their trajectory and they went off someplace else. Well, we've come to learn that the United States government central bankers were cyber attacking North Korea and basically damaging their systems. And this is why we saw all those mishaps with their missiles. So the United States government central bankers were cyber attacking another country that never did anything to the United States. Yes, it was built up in the corporate media that they're coming to get us, that they're about to do something. But again, that was all propaganda. And while all that was happening, they increased military budget. They brought in military assets into South Korea. They bring in the THAAD missile system. And they're continually provoking North Korea over and over and over again. Now we see that a Syrian jet might have been shot down over southern Turkey. A Syrian MiG-21 fighter jet was reportedly crashed in Turkey's southern province after being shot down by a Turkey-backed Syrian rebel group, Al-Sham, which is a terrorist group, which is part of the Euphrates Shield operation. And we can see right now that the situation right now is really building up in Syria. But Russia, I should say Putin, just did something very interesting. Because we know that the United States government central bankers, they were using the Kurds, pitting the Kurds against Turkey, saying that Kurds should have their own area and Kurds is separate from the Syrian government. And they were using that agenda. And they've been using it for a very long time. And while Turkey and the United States were, arguing about Manbij, who should capture it and all this stuff, Putin did something very interesting. And again, turned the tables on the deep state. Because what Putin did, well, he just shut down any dreams of Erdogan, shut down whatever plans the United States government central bankers have by doing something very interesting. Russia mediated a deal between the Kurdish Manbij Military Council and Assad, in which the Syrian government would take control of the region. And Putin swooped in and united the Kurds and Assad, while the United States government central bankers and Ankara, Turkey, were busily, arguing about Manbij. And now that the Russian flag is flying proudly alongside the Kurdish MMC, it seems that things are at its end here, where Russia just maneuvered their way into uniting the country instead of dividing it up. And we're going to have to see what the central bankers and the deep state do at this point. Now, we're getting word that U.S. Special Forces teams, including Delta Force and Navy SEALs, well, they're likely to see more missions in the Middle East. The Pentagon right now is reportedly preparing new deployments to the entire region inside of Iraq and Syria. Now, the question is, what are they doing in this area? Is it a mop-up mission covering their tracks of the Islamic State and the terrorist groups of what has been going on for many, many years? Or are they pushing a new agenda to try to reach Assad at all costs? And this is a situation that we need to watch. But what we do understand from everything that's been going on is that the deep state, they are pushing back. We see the White House, the good guys in that area, are pushing back on them. And this is a real battle between good and bad. And as we move throughout this year, like I said, things are going to heat up. Now, if Trump does not concede and does not play along with the deep state will up the ante. They're not just going to go away and give up. They will push their agenda to scare him or remove him into submission. And as we get closer and closer to this collapse scenario, because we're seeing all the signs, we're seeing how the economy is deteriorating, we're going to see this actually heat up as we move along into the spring, into the summer, and especially into the fall. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.